The House of Representatives has approved a measure automatically registering men aged 18 to 26 for selective service, a key part of the annual National Defense Authorization Act, better known as the NDAA, which defines the U.S. government's military and national security priorities for the upcoming fiscal year, authorizes $895.2 billion in military spending, reflecting a $9 billion increase from fiscal year 2024. You hear that? $9 billion more, so that they can send more over to Ukraine. Anyway, despite the selective service not being activated for over 50 years, it remains mandatory for all male U.S. citizens to register upon turning 18. Failure to comply with this requirement is classified as a felony and can lead to various legal complications. Proponents of the amendment, led by Representative Chrissy Houlihan, Democrat of Pennsylvania, argued that the measure will streamline bureaucratic processes, help citizens avoid unnecessary legal troubles, and reduce taxpayer expenses associated with prosecuting non-compliance cases. The measure passed the House Armed Services Committee in May with an overwhelming 57-1 vote and subsequently cleared the full House with the 217-199 vote. So I hope everyone knows how these bills and all work. It's quite an interesting process. It has to be submitted to a committee, and it has to make it out of committee by having a majority vote before it even goes to the floor to be debated on and discussed. And this made it through the Armed Services Committee, and then 57-1 overwhelmingly, and then it went to the House floor and got a 217-199 vote. Now, this year's NDAA includes several significant provisions, such as the largest military pay raise in history, which is amazing. That's great. Long overdue. Folks in the military should be paid much better than what they are, just like teachers should be paid much more than what they are. Teachers and even police. I dare say the police and teachers should be paid. Police, teachers, and armed forces should be paid like doctors, in my humble opinion. Junior enlisted troops will see a 19.5% increase in their pay, while others will receive a 4.5% raise. Additionally, the Act funds 2 new Virginia-class subs and establishes a drone force within the U.S. Army. Well, we definitely need that with Russia playing in our faces, as they say. However, the bill's prospects in the Senate are uncertain. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, the Democrat out of New York, has criticized the inclusion of controversial amendments related to abortion, transgender medical care, and diversity efforts. Unsurprisingly, the legislation comes out of the House today is loaded. That came out of the House today is loaded with anti-LGBTQ and anti-choice, anti-environment, and other divisive amendments guaranteed not to pass the Senate. This is what Schumer remarked. He emphasized the need for bipartisan collaboration to pass legislation that honors and respects all those who serve in defense of the nation. So basically, in layman's terms, all this work was done in committee, went through the floor. It's been passed through the House, one version of the legislation, their version. Now it has to go over to the Senate for the Senate to take a look at it and decide whether they're going to have a discussion on it and bring it to vote. Chuck Schumer doesn't necessarily have to, but he probably will. Then they have to come up with a version of it, their own version, and after amendments and all this whole, it's an interesting process. Then they have to come up with a bill that they all agree on both sides when there's a full congressional vote. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Well, I guess it is here nor there. Among the contentious amendments is one from Representative Beth Van Doon, a Republican out of Texas, which prohibits the Defense Department from covering travel expenses for service members seeking reproductive care out of state. Following the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade, Van Doon defended her amendment, arguing it protects the unborn and disputing claims that it endangers women by denying access to critical care. Now, the House version of the NDAA also sees support from GOP defense hawks and centrist Democrats, who defeated several far-right proposals, including an attempt by Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican out of Georgia, to prohibit U.S. assistance for Ukraine. Despite these divisions, Republicans largely supported their colleagues' conservative proposals. The NDAA also continues to bolster U.S. military infrastructure and capabilities. It includes upgrades to military housing and other facilities, expanded development and procurement of advanced weapons and technology, and enhanced support for U.S. allies such as Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. The bill also seeks to strengthen the Pentagon's role in U.S. border security. Now, meanwhile, the Senate Armed Services Committee announced the completion of its $923.3 billion defense bill, while Senate Majority Leader Schumer has not specified when it will be brought to the floor. Senator Tim Kaine, the Democrat out of Virginia, expressed confidence in reconciling the House and Senate versions of this bill, predicting that many of the far-right amendments would not survive the reconciliation process. Now, as the legislative process continues, the focus will be on crafting a final NDAA that addresses the complex needs of national defense while navigating the political landscape of Congress. And that's just a whole lot of jargon on how the legislative process works of both sides, having to discuss what they want in the bill, provide amendments. You have to vote on whether you want the amendment to stay in. If the vote goes through, it changes the draft, if you will. If it doesn't go through, the draft stays the same. Then you vote on whether or not you want to vote on the legislation as it is. If you do, and it gets through the House, now it has to go to the Senate, and they do the same thing. And then they have to come to an agreement together, work together. The leaders work together on an official draft that everyone agrees on, what a majority of everyone agrees on. And it looks like now it's in the hands of the Senate, Schumer, to determine what they want to do to amend, change, add to, take away, and as it relates to their version of this bill. So it's still got a while, and in my opinion, it's all gonna fall apart because the Senate is led by the Democrats, and the Democrats are wanting to add in things pertaining to LGBTQ and stuff like that. But so anyway, we'll see what happens. What are your thoughts on this new legislation, defense legislation?